We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, and now in Albuquerque, New Mexico on 1000 KKIM. Our guest by phone, Tara O'Grady, talking about her dad, Colonel John O'Grady, who was a POW MIA in Vietnam. Clay, you had a question?
No, I was wondering. I didn't know how long he lived. I was curious, and I was hoping he didn't have the opportunity to meet that disgusting person called Jane Fonda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Who's involved in this new movie, The Butler? She's playing Nancy Reagan. You talk about.
Yeah, I will not visit that movie, nor will I hope any other soldier that served in this government.
No, I would imagine most of them will not. Before we go on, give us your website and your Facebook page.
The Facebook page is Colonel John O'Grady, a Lost Hero. And that is a page I started actually before I discovered this information in 2012 about my dad. I decided to honor my dad with this page, which I also honor other veterans, fallen soldiers, and so on. And I emphasize the POW MIA issue, of course. But now that after the new information came in May of 2012, I have also started a campaign to get my father home. I believe, because we never had a funeral, we never had a memorial service, and my father, a hero, deserves a funeral with full military honors. And I never had the chance to say goodbye, and I want that. And I feel very strongly that it's disgraceful that they know where he is and that they leave him lying in an unmarked grave 8,000 miles away.
That's our government.
So that's what my Facebook page is about. On there, I have links to, ways we are trying to get him home. We started a petition. There's the Rolling Thunders, which advocates for the POW MIA issue. Matthew Majors, he's one of the president chapters. He helped me start a venue called O'Grady Thursday, where every Thursday, all the different pages that deal with the veterans will promote the issue of my father, and you can join that effort, and there are links to that. I also have a web page that gives the story of Colonel O'Grady and his family, and that is at John O'Grady MIA blogspot.com.
Now, the family had some kind of relationship with Ross Perot. What did he do?
Well, okay, when my father first went missing in 1967, a couple of years later, Look magazine and Reader's Digest magazine came to my mother, and they wanted to do a story about her being left, about, is she a wife or a widow? She was left with 7 children, not knowing if her husband's alive or dead. And after those stories were featured, Ross Perot came to my mother and said, I would like to sponsor a trip for you and your children to Paris to meet with the Vietnamese, to see if your father... to find out if he's in the prison camps. And he did sponsor that trip, and we did travel there. And basically, the only thing told to us was, well, we can't find him in our camps, but it's really up to your government to tell you if he's alive or dead, not us. And that was the only response we received from the Vietnamese government.
So what's our government done for you?
Well, I do support JPAC's efforts to try to find our missing in action, but there has been a lot of recent allegations of inefficiency. There was a congressional investigation which was led by Senator Kelly Iotti, Republican from New Hampshire, and Senator Claire McCaskill, a Democrat from Missouri. They led investigations into they're claiming that there's been poor leadership, mismanagement, miscommunications that are hindering the efforts of JPAC to find our missing in action. So the government, they have been leery to give full accounting and information to the families. So I don't feel that they were very supportive of us because it's been like pulling teeth to get information from them.
Amazing. Our guest by phone, Tara O'Grady, whose father is a POW MIA in Vietnam, and they know where he is buried. You had an interesting story you and I were talking about yesterday about the villagers, the North Vietnamese soldiers, how they feel about the fact that he is buried there in North Vietnamese soil? Tell us about that.
Yeah, what it is the two soldiers, they're Buddhists, and their religious beliefs say that you must return the body and remains of someone to their family, or they will haunt the earth. And because of those beliefs, they were very careful in making a reference point so they would remember where he was buried. And that's why they used the star fruit tree as a reference. And supposedly they claimed they were searching for the family for many years because they wanted to let them know that where he was so he could be returned. And they have a very interesting story about his last moments on Earth, too, which included him clinging to a photo of his family and his reluctance to give it up. And one other thing they did that's unusual is they buried him with his ID tags, which they're not supposed to do. They're supposed to turn in everything to the Vietnamese government. They did turn in his ID tag, which showed up in Hanoi many years earlier, but his picture ID. But his ID tags, the dog tags they wear around they buried those with him, so it would be easier to identify him.
Okay. Yeah, you usually have two, one they bury you with normally in that situation, and the second one goes back. You and I talked a little bit about the POW issue, and I don't want to be too controversial here, but I have heard from a couple people I know over the years that were in the know, and they said that the remaining POWs in Vietnam at one point were just either exterminated or eliminated because of convenience, because it would show bad for the Vietnamese. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I agree that many were terminated. I also believe some were sent to the Russian labor camps. And when the president of Russia, Boris Yeltsin, at the time, in 1992, when he claims that's a lot. And there's also been so much other credible evidence that has come forward. I mean, there were sightings for years. There was this I mentioned earlier, the distress code signals that were seen by satellite in Vietnam. So I believe there were men alive. I believe when Nixon and Kissinger had the peace accords, that they knew that, and they had to, for political reasons, could not come forward that there were still men because the numbers didn't match the numbers that were that they have documents that show how many prisoners were there in 12 of 72 compared to how many came home in 73 during Operation Homecoming. There's a big discrepancy.
Yeah. So
that's a real problem. And I think that's the first time. I mean, we have missing in action from many wars, from Korea War, from World War II. But those are more fallen heroes who, they never found their remains and body. But the difference is, I think, in Vietnam, it was the first time we abandoned live prisoners.
Well, Tara, I got to disagree with you there. There was something that came out in the Senate a couple of years ago where they acknowledged that there was between, depending upon who you talk to, anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 POWs from World War II that ended up in those same Russian labor camps. So, and that's disgusting. I mean,
I'm sorry. I should have clarified myself.
Yeah.
I do believe at one time, but I think there are no more alive today, is what I should have said.
No, they're all gone.
Yeah, and the possibility with Vietnam is there may be some still alive, though now they're getting into their 70s and 80s, and if you've been in a labor camp for 40 years, I know what are the chances of still surviving, but who knows? But yeah, it's very, I think it's a disgrace that our country has been, and they're so secretive about it, and they hide behind, the fact that they can't give out this information. So it's very difficult to get them to come forward, and a lot of it is in secrecy. And
Tara, unfortunately, we're out of time. And thank you so much. We would love to have you back and talk about this as the issue progresses. Okay?
Well, I would love to come back, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Tara. Clay, you had an issue you wanted to talk about for a few minutes?
Well, I just had a couple of issues. I was in Chicago this past week, and I was with United Benefit Administrators or Associates, and we were talking about Obamacare and what's taking place. And I thought the public ought to know that this is going to be a total disaster, and that they need to understand that rates are going to drastically increase, benefits are going to be drastically reduced, and people who think they're going to be able to get in and get a subsidy are in for a rude awakening as they are under this whole program. That was one issue I just wanted to touch on. And the other issue I wanted to touch on, a good friend of mine, Dr. William Long in Los Angeles, who did a knee replacement or a knee revision on me a couple of years ago, is going to be in Bakersfield. And he's got some brand new equipment, does a fantastic job, and he'll be at the DoubleTree Saturday while this program is being aired. And if you get a chance, come on over to the DoubleTree and learn about knees and hips.
Thank you, Clay. And we will see you in 167 hours on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180.